Yeah, there's an article in Reuters that the House passed a reauthorization for the FAA, which apparently included a bunch of specifics. And one of the specifics was raising commercial pilot retirement age from 65 to 67. Why is that a
Yeah,
big deal?
I I read a couple articles about this, and that bill was 800 pages. So who knows what else is actually in it, or if anybody will read it. But
You have
that's
to pass
nuts.
it to find out what's in it.
Correct. Mover, yellow light. No, so I don't, I saw that and I just thought, I don't know if you guys have the same thought, but when like 30 years ago, I worked at a grocery store and it was pretty much run by all kids. Now, when I go to the grocery store, there's like old people. And that's just what I think of this. Keep raising the age of pilots. It's like, man, at some point, you got to put out the pasture. The people who support it say, hey, it's going to help with the pilot shortage. Hey, it's going to help with mentorship. But, the people who are against it are like, no, it's going to logjam the training pipeline. And I read a thing where at American, something like 30% of like the oldest pilots that are there are on like disability. Like they're not even doing the job.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's my opinion of it is it's probably it's got to go to the House, right? But or the Senate. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's gotta go to the
I'm just a
Senate.
bill guy. It shows you how it gets passed.
I'm just a bill.
They're probably speed reading it right
Sitting
now.
on Capitol Hill. No,
Anything important? Nothing yet, sir.
It's all whose hands get greased and then they get money. And oh my God, there's the disclaimer again.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. We're all old enough to remember it used to be 60 and then they raised it to 65.
Yeah. That crushed a lot of people.
It did, but the older I get, the more I realize just those 2 years is a big deal.
Yeah.
Watching my parents' age, not that they're old and crazy or nothing, but just, the older you get, just, you lose some of your motor skills, I don't know. It's just time to stop working sometimes. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think I read something too, like a majority of airline pilots retire before they hit 65 anyway, or they're medically retired before that anyway. So
you work, Casmo. I'm going to come there. They must make good money.
I just don't. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be that big of an impact. Like, I don't think the numbers are going to change. I don't think it's going to change anything with the hiring shortage. You could make the argument for the mentoring, but I don't know. But then there's the other side of that coin, which is and I think you kind of touched on it with the training pipeline, because what the ICAO standards are still 65. So if
that's right.
You're Captain Big Man and you're flying, 777 or whatever from Dallas to Tokyo all the time. And now suddenly it's like, hey, now we need you to fly a 7-3 and you're doing Denver to Dallas, all the time. Are you going to stay? I don't think so, unless you got like the third wife and the 8 boats, and whatever. And then I guess you kind of lock yourself in. Yeah. But yeah, and there's going to be plenty of those dudes, because I know I've flown with a few of them. But I don't think those numbers are going to be substantial. So I just, at the end of the day, I don't think that it's going to matter that much.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it does pass. And we've got some older guys where I'm at, but I don't know. Mover.
Standard airline pilot answer is, I want it to stay as is until I need it.
Right.
And then we can change. Don't change it now. Wait, and then you can do whatever. But
we waiting for a while.
Well, so the other argument is, because they didn't address this, right? So they say this is going to affect the pilot shortage. I agree with Casmo and Gonky. I don't think it's going to have an appreciable difference on whether we are canceling flights because of manning. I do think that from a unionist perspective, it's bad, because we've already had a 5-year drop for people that expected, because you join this career with an expectation, right? You're like, I need to plan for this. And then that changes. And then there's this 5 years of stagnation. And now it's going to be 2 years. And in fact, I think that I've seen versions of this bill, and it'll depend on, how they reconcile between the Senate and the House. But I've seen versions that are actually 67 plus 364 days. It's right before your 68th birthday. So that's 3 years. So from a unionist perspective, it's bad because you have planned, the deal was 60, okay, then they moved it to 65, and now they're moving it again. It's going to cause stagnation, and that is what is drawing people into this job, is because it's a record, retirements, and there's movement. If you stop that, it's going to be 2 years of stagnation unless ICAO doesn't do it. I think ICAO, if the U.S. says 67, ICAO is going to fall in line. They're not going to.
So?
Yeah, because look at all the countries that already are. I think Japan. There are quite a few countries that are already age 67.
Was ICAO 60 before, and then when we changed it to 65? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So it's already. I mean, I think what the safety aspect. I mean, let's face it, airliners are safe. They're inherently safe. They're procedurally safe. 2 people in the cockpit. As long as you keep 2 people in the cockpit, I don't think it matters for a safety perspective, because we've already seen cases where somebody has a medical emergency, even the first officer or the captain, and it's handled successfully because you've got that other pilot there. Now, if we start talking single pilot or automation, AI, then it's a problem, because now you've lost that redundancy. You've lost that safety aspect.
You know, instead of just age, I think you guys probably agree with me. It's there can be a major disparity between one 67-year-old and another. Oh, yeah. I've seen some pretty huge. I've seen some pretty out of shape captains walking around that were
you're not fitting through that little window.
No. So I mean, kind of goes back to the FAA medical. Maybe instead of trying to raise the age, they need to.
You would lose so many pilots if you did that. That would be, if you raise the medical standards, you would lose people from all walks of life.
Not raise the medical standard, but hey, beyond this age,
adhere to it.
Yes, these are old people need certain cognitive skills and motor skills and whatnot.
Well, you get that in the sim. I mean, we already get that, right? You go to your recurrency training, and there's some level of, hey, can he hack? Well, I mean, valid.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, if Pete Mitchell could blow up in a dark star and eject and still ride his Harley or his Kawasaki at the end of Top Gun Maverick at 60, I think you could give people a little bit of leeway to waddle their into the.
But that's my point exactly. He's 60. I could show you some 60-year-olds that are in a graveyard. that's what I'm saying. Is the disparity at that age
age discrimination, Gonky.
Is that what that is? Am I yellow light now?
Yeah, I think, Gonky, you need to be a little bit kinder and gentler. I don't like the pulling up the ladder part of this. That's the thing that gets me, is I got mine, I need 2 more years to pay for ex-wife number 6.9, and you junior guys, you'll be senior someday. I don't like that part. I wouldn't have a problem with it if they said, hey, it's still 65, but if you want to keep flying, you can come back to a regional and start over. Domestic only.
They used to go to the FE, right? Isn't that right? Like back in the day? Right. Yeah. You could be like 75 and be a flight engineer, right? But then we kind of got rid of that position. So.
Yeah. I'm going to get some hate mail for what I just said. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. All of the get off my lawn.
But I think that's the bigger question, or the bigger conversation, is not so much the age, but like you said, the single pilot ops, because I keep hearing that over and over. And it's like, the first time I flew into Newark and did like the stadium visual arrival, I was like, I can't imagine in a world where doing this single pilot is okay. Like, you're just both like, just looking at everything, and it's just so chaotic. And I just, that part scares me. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And even if it does, it's going to start over into cargo land. But still, that's the conversation. And the other thing that I just came across the other day, I read an article. It was talking about, and I think maybe you guys can appreciate this too, is quality of life is starting to trump pay in a lot of people in the airlines. And so there was an article from United was saying they were having trouble getting guys to upgrade because the first option was like, why would I do that? Yeah, why would I do that? And I'm the same way in my company. Like, I'm already like number 12 on the OML for like my base. And guys are like, oh, when are you going to upgrade? I'm like, never. Why would I? Like, now you're going to make me change my base. I'm going to be the lowest dude on the totem pole.
You are totally preaching the choir here, man.
Yeah. And so I'm just curious, like, because it sounds like, if United is saying this is a problem, I know other first officers at my company, which is a little rinky-dink company, it's a problem. So yeah, I'd just be interested to see how that plays out over time.
And they used to force guys, right? Move up or move out, right? Didn't they? I know at the regionals.
Yeah, that used to be
the regionals
up or out. Yeah,
Yeah, they started forcing
American,
upgrades at like
for sure.
PSA and stuff like that.
Yeah. But on the flip side, so that is both the gift and the curse. I've seen guys talk about this. You talk about quality of life. Well, the reason quality of life is so bad is because of the pilot shortage, because they're so afraid they can't cover the schedules. So if you alleviate the pilot shortage, you won't move up in seniority, but you'll actually get more quality of life because they'll have more pilots to fill the schedule. But you're not fixing. Gonky, you and I talked about this the other day about the military when I was saying to make them tell you no. And I said, hey, we've got in the military side, which we're about to get to in a minute. In the military side, we're not enough qualified applicants, and we've got a retention problem on the back end. But there's actually a middle piece to that, and that is the training pipeline. You cannot keep the correct amount of people qualified and in the seats. And the same thing applies with the airlines is, okay, so you just fix the top half of the seniority list, which, as Casmo said, that's probably going to be guys that just go off on long-term disability for even longer. But and even if you say, hey, what about the junior guys? Well, they don't want to touch the 1,500-hour thing, which I think is arbitrary. I mean, I think it's very arbitrary, especially in situations like Casmo, where he had to go just fly to get qualified to get the ATP when he had a considerable amount of airmanship to get there. There's a lot of arbitrary rules here, which was based off of Colgan Air, which had nothing to do with how many hours they had. It was about fatigue. It was about fatigue and commuting across the country. So you still have to fix that part, but then you have to fix the training bottleneck, which they can't fix because they don't have enough check airmen. They don't have enough sim instructors. They don't have enough sim capacity to even maintain what they're doing. So I don't think any of this fixes that.
No. Yeah, I think Delta's having like record size classes, they're having like 60, 70 people per class, where I think normally it's like 20, the backlog of training it's a huge problem. There's no one solution. And the problem is no matter how many solutions you throw at it, it's going to take time. It's almost like a cultural problem at this point, because this is the way the system works. And how long is it going to take to right the ship? Yes, but this is not going to solve it 100%.
No. Well, and you make a good point too, is it's only going to get worse because culturally back in our day, right? I got my pilot's license. It was like $3,500 back in the early 2000s. Yeah. How much does it cost 90s now? It's like 10. It's like 10 grand or more in a Cessna. Like these kids can't afford it. It's unobtainable for so many people, and what do you do?
Even renting a little Cessna to go out and try to build some hours. I mean, you're gonna
I would not have been able to do it I used my GI Bill and went to a school, and that's how I grinded out all those hours. And to Mover's point, 100%. I'm mixed on the 1,500 hours because I think there's legitimacy in the fact that you have to be exposed to problems in order to overcome them. And I think that the lower hours you have, the less likelihood you've had those problems. I know that's not a very great argument, but I flew with some of these young CFIs when I 2,500 hours, and I'm flying with a dude who's got 300 hours or whatever, and he's teaching me stuff, and I'm like, okay, listen to me, young champ. This is how this is going to play out. Like, you got me on the Cessna, right? You've told me everything I need to know about the Cessna. Let me explain to you why you should not have called to enter the Class B airspace, because we're on an IFR flight plan. Okay. True story. Great kid. Love him. True story. But so you got to have exposure to those things. Cause I remember my first flight in a 737 coming out of training out of my OE, we lost cabin pressure. And I think like a young kid would probably freak the hell out. I was just like, all right, that's cool. Cause I've been shot at, I've had all kinds of stupid stuff happen to me. So I think having exposure to problems is good. And you're only going to get that with a lot of exposure to the cockpit and time. 1,500 is an arbitrary number, but at the same time, show me a number that isn't, right? Like there's going to be a very hard time to find a science that says 1,500, because for Gonky, for Mover, it could be 500 hours is all you needed to be successful. But some other dude, maybe he needs 2,000, right? And so it's hard. It's an accordion.
Yeah.
Well, it's the quality of hours too, obviously.
That's
exactly right.
If you're just
Right.
staring at out the window for 1,500 hours, that's a lot different than like you know, flying a helicopter in combat for 1,500 hours.
Yeah. Well, that's what a guy told me that flew the 160th. He's like, you know, some guys have 1,000 hours and some guys have the same hour 1,000 times. And that's really what it boils down to. Right. And unfortunately, though, that's what it is. Right. And I was stunned. I don't know why, but I was stunned going to that school and all these very young junior CFIs are teaching stuff. And I'm like, man, aviation is weird because in the military, you're trained by guys who, generally speaking, have a little bit more experience. I know in the jet world, you do have the dudes who kind of just rotate back into training right after completing, but still, you still have that, like, you know, those older dudes who've been there, done that. And you got all these young CFIs. And I'm like, man, that's the blind leading the blind on a lot of this stuff. And that was kind of shocking to me. But yeah, having exposure to various situations, to various climates and all that stuff is huge.
That helped me in my helicopter training because, you know, I could see somebody with 0 hours going, okay, yeah, whatever. And me with, you know, 3,000 hours, mostly in fighters, I would see a situation go, nope, ain't going to happen.
Right.
Not today, not ever. You know, I'm not flying like this. And
right. Well, there's like legal weather and prudent weather, right? Like, you know, it's like you experience tells you, nah, I know the paper says we're legal. I'm not doing that. You know, I'll never forget the same kid looking outside. We were flying up to Syracuse. I was in Trenton. We were flying up to Syracuse, I think. And icing was at like 8,000 feet. And so we were at like 6,000. I planned the flight for like 6,000, you know, and he kept looking at the temperature, and it got to like where it should be icing. And I'm just cruising along, you know, whatever. And, you know, we're in the clouds and he's looking outside. He's got his flashlight. He's looking at stuff. And he's like, I don't understand. He's like, this is icing. There should be ice on the wings. And I'm like, well, now you see experience, right? The knowledge, the wisdom tells you, you know, that yes, there should be ice, but in the real world, it just doesn't always work out that way. And so, yeah, you got to have that experience.